So, in this video, it's going to be a pretty short rant. I'm, you know, I know I like to talk a lot about fascism and external circumstance and society, but as I'm kind of also on my growth journey and kind of learning how to determine, okay, what's more caused by external unfair circumstances and what's more where can we take matters more into our own hands and just learn to kind of see things from a bigger picture and try and live our best lives despite the unfairness and injustices that occur to us on an individual level. You know, I'm gonna use this Eastern European country as an example. I believe it was Moldova, um, or it could have been some other Eastern European country. Basically, they they ended up. I think it's one of the poorest countries in Europe, but they ended up producing a surplus of healthcare workers, and a lot of their middle class over there is extremely educated. And I read this in some it was like some NIH paper, and what ended up happening was now you had a surplus of experts who were overqualified but could not find a job to match their qualifications. And that left a pretty large unhappy populace. Now, as far as are there truly enough healthcare workers to support their population, or did they have too many people trying to apply to the limited number of spots? Because for example, that's something I really don't know. For example, in America is in need of many physicians. um However, even though they're in need of many physicians, there are only a limited number of spots that I believe the AAMC or whoever's in control of residency spots, or NRMP, AAMC, there are only a limited number of residency spots to become an MD physician. And apparently that has not actually increased since the 1990s or something. So it's really hard to say in those types of situations, are the systems themselves not allowing for the are they creating like a type of false surplus when in reality they need more healthcare workers but there are not enough spots? um that's hard to tell, but this got me really thinking about, you know unless we're able to work up and get up to the level of Congress or those big organizations that deal with those types of issues and debates, we can't do much as powerless individuals. Sure, we can probably try and write emails to them and get involved with student organizations and stuff like that. But it takes a lot of time. And in the meantime, we really need to build our own lives. So it's in times like these where in the US we see a similar situation, an economy that's falling apart, an educated middle class that's getting more poor, um, less able to afford retirement and even living, housing, and ensure their children a stable, financially stable future. And we're also seeing a lot of overeducated people who are not able to find enough opportunities to match their qualifications, which are then being filled in by all these like newbies, right? And then there are all of us that are just kind of stuck in the middle. So in these type of situations, the point I'm trying to make in the complexity of everything I've described, if that isn't confusing enough, the point I'm trying to make is that everything is so confusing right now. And a lot of us don't have control over that. And if things don't work out as you planned, well, for one, knowing that things are this complicated and crazy, don't put so much blame on yourself. But also, don't waste so much time trying to fix the external circumstances, especially if you're powerless. Um, I feel like there are so many paths for someone to take in their life, and I feel like society, especially educated society, is very egotistical, and they tend to put so much emphasis on, you're only worthy if you're an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer. And I know if you've worked towards that and spent a lot of money and time working towards that and it doesn't work out, that's painful. That sucks, right? That sucks. At the same time, if you can't do much about your external circumstances or about that unfairness or injustice, well, you still need to live your life. And part of living your life, and I'm kind of having a conversation with myself now also, part of living your life means you need to get some form of secure finances. And in the midst of all this mess of the world, and who I don't exactly know whose fault it is, right? It's too complicated to really just place all the blame on a particular person or a group of people. If we as individuals and as communities can find a way to stay optimistic, can consider different career paths that can still contribute greatly to society or add to its beauty and make people happy, then if all of us stuck in the middle can in some way just continue to not only build ourselves up individually and career wise, but also just in general. Keep the vibes up, as corny as that sounds. And not get so lost in the anger and confusion and all the political rhetoric that comes with these times of uncertainty and upheaval in our society and our country. I think we can guide our own generation and all those struggling and suffering, as well as be an example for future generations as to how to stay optimistic and resilient, and that there are better ways to solve our problems than war and vengeance towards each other. And in the grander scheme of things, as hard of a pill it is to swallow, in the grander scheme of things, perhaps it was just meant to be this way. You know, individually, it seems really unfair, but there's so many other factors playing into what's causing people like me to have to reroute in our lives, in our careers, and for things to be uncertain. And it doesn't help to get angry. It doesn't help to continue mulling over the injustice and unfairness. It sucks. But we have to be strong and resilient. And we have to keep our heads held high, and there are so many things we can do to make our own lives better and the lives of our communities better. And if a collective of us can show the world that this can be done through better, more creative, more productive, and less vengeful means, then perhaps we can be the one hinge, the one piece that ends up saving a society that seems to fall apart, that seems like it's falling apart, or when it does fall apart, people like us that are remaining will be able to help rebuild it back into something a lot more functional, and teach others how to stand strong and be compassionate and not be angry or vengeful in the face of adversity and injustice. And yeah, I mean, it sucks. I know. I'm not gonna lie. But we can't control all these larger forces putting us on this weird position. But that shouldn't stop us from experiencing life and making something of ourselves, is all I'm saying. Anyways, to me, one of the biggest forms of rebelliousness against our oppressors and against fascists who generally want to see us happy or reactive enough so they can point fingers at us and take away our rights and keep us trapped and isolated. The biggest form of protest is to show them we're living our lives, that we're doing something with our lives, no matter what it is, even if it's not something that they consider, something of value for whatever arbitrary, egotistical reason. We fight by showing that them we're happy and we're independent. And even if you're not financially independent yet, like doing anything, hobbies, volunteering, connecting with the community, just making a stranger happy. Like I always mention, we also feed in to the dynamics of fascism. And when we try too hard to control the circumstances because we're unhappy that we're not at a certain place in our life, we become unhappy and we start treating others a certain way, and we become vengeful, and we just feed into those dynamics of division and distrust that our parents fed into, that our grandparents fed into, that authority still feed into, that really just screwed people like me and you over, because they're still trying to maintain their facade and image and everything. And yes, to a certain extent, like, my parents did that to protect us, but some of the people, I'm talking about businessmen or powerful leaders in institutions and stuff, whenever they try to protect their image, it's not even like my parents who do that to try and help me out financially. Theirs is like, no, I care about preserving the image of this institution, even if it means I have to throw some innocent people under the bus for something petty. It's it's that's exactly who we don't want to be, you know? And we need to show the people that there's another way, and that we can never be oppressed no matter our circumstances. Because I do still believe that oppression, also, a lot of it is a state of mind. And what we have to do is be resilient, be non reactive, and learn to channel our rage in better, more societally acceptable ways, and really gather together and realize we're not alone. We're not alone in these weird and strange circumstances that are out of our control. But yeah, so, you know, maintaining a democracy is like so much an individual and collective responsibility.